Hey there, coffee for you this morning? Pop around. I'll make you some. I got some here. So a question that I often revisit in my life from time to time. Sometimes it just pops into my mind. Sometimes it's because of what I see when I scroll all these social media videos and stuff like that. And man, it's a question that I feel it often checks my heart. It checks my agenda. It checks my mission. It checks especially my reason for doing what I'm doing. And that question is, why do I do what I do? So, why do you do what you do? Why am I sharing all these messages every day? Why do I try my best to imitate Jesus? Why do I tell people about Jesus? And this line of questioning is just for one aspect of my life. But it can apply to every aspect as well. There are other questions for the other aspects, but it's phenomenal how God brings everything together in our lives. Well, in my life, I suppose I can't always speak for everybody, but there are so many people that share the same stuff. But it's incredible how God brings everything together. That essentially you can ask the same questions everywhere. And I see so much stuff out there where people use scripture for their own selfish agendas. A passion, strong feelings for stuff, that's great. But as soon as you start quoting scripture, and especially if you start taking scripture out of context in order to add to whatever it is you're forcing me to believe, or what you're trying to force on me, or that sort of stuff, you kind of lose me immediately. And it's easy to take scripture out of context. It's very, very easy. And when you lose me, I tend to move on. That's the interesting thing about those sort of messages are it's the scripture gets twisted. People twist the scripture to either justify wrongful behavior or to make sure they try and manipulate you into believing uh, that there's so much truth behind what they are saying. And it's easy to point. If your heart is wrong, you can say the people that are preaching for the right reasons, people that are sharing for the right reason, are manipulating too. You can easily do that as well. But I came across 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 16. I like the 3:16s throughout the Bible. There are actually quite a lot of them that are magnificent. John 3:16, obviously the ultimate one, my favorite one. Anyway, Peter writes, sorry, in 2 Peter 3, where he actually refers to Paul, that he refers to the letters that Paul has written and wrote through all the times to all the people and stuff like that, and that he's very straightforward, which he pretty much was. And he says he writes in verse 16. He says he writes the same way in all his letters, speaking in them of these matters. His letters contain some things that are hard to understand, but this is the important bit here, which ignorant and unstable people distort, as they do the other scriptures, to their own destruction. One of the other translations says that they twist, that they twist the scriptures to their own destruction. So when you start doing these things, it becomes a difficult space, and it's easily something that can be debated upon and argued upon and that sort of thing. Um, but I just felt to mention that. But a space where I still need to learn is where Jesus comes in with, especially the above type people. In my life, in Matthew 22, Jesus says in verse 37 to 39, Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second one that is like it, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself." So there's not a first and a second commandment here. Jesus says these are the two main commandments, and he goes on after that by saying that everything, all the laws, everything that we need to abide by, the Ten Commandments that we've been given, all those things are incorporated in this. And if you really sit and think about it, if you act in love, you wouldn't want to steal, you wouldn't want to murder, you wouldn't envy, you wouldn't be jealous, you wouldn't desire what isn't yours. It's incredible that if you love God with your everything, and you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you would do for them and want for them what you want for you. So everything gets incorporated here. But this whole love thing is definitely something in my life that I still need to learn plenty about. Now, love for God, even as much as I know I love God right now, there's still plenty that I need to learn about my love for Him, and especially for those around me as well. We struggle because of that ridiculous, selfish nature we have as people, and you need to learn to love when you see people like manipulative people try and force things on you that you're sitting there and you're going, how blind and stupid is this person? And I think that, but then again, we can't technically think like that because I feel sometimes it's very judgmental if you think and say it exactly like that, and we're not allowed to judge. I'm not allowed to judge. I know I can't. That's God's job. But I do need to make sense of it, and we do need to make sense of things throughout our lives. So, why then do I do what I do? Why do I do what I do then? Because it's easy to say the same thing about my messages, right? This idiot over here quoting scripture at me, throwing his beliefs at me. I'm not forcing anything on anybody. Just remember that. Ultimately, decision in the end becomes all our own, and it's all your own. And if you sit there and you do listen to my messages, I'm very grateful because it adds to me keeping on going. If nothing else comes from these messages that I've been doing over the last while and will be doing moving forward, then I think it's something that I get to reflect back on and listen to God's messages for me in a time where I'll probably need it. Um, but God has done so many incredible things in my life, throughout my life, that I need to share it with you, that I want to share it. So other people can also have the opportunity to maybe have their eyes open to see the great things that God has done in their lives. And if my story changes somebody's life, awesome, great, as long as it's for God's glory. Because it's not I who did it, it's God who did it. I just stuck up my hand and opened up. I was an open vessel that I feel that God could use. My gifts, my talents. The Bible ultimately teaches us that none of these things are given for us. It's not for me. My gifts, my talents, my skills, all the things that I can do, God gives it for me so I can share it with people, so people can be blessed by it. And how does that happen? Well, He puts us in areas where we use these things. Social media is a beautiful platform where this occurs. Between people at your office, at your social groups that you hang out, everywhere. If you have talents, depending on what it is, you apply it wherever you are. I know of a few people that some I have met, some I haven't, that they're in the music industry. They don't do Christian music, but they will come gladly worship with you at your church. They'll gladly lead the worship for you. But they feel, and I'm speaking more particularly South African people now, because the whole gospel industry with regards to music, if you think in financial stability, it's not that easy to make it. And I've spoken to quite a few people to be able to say this out loud. But anyway, but they still love Jesus wherever it is that they go. These people, even if they're making normal Afrikaans, lekker sakkie musiek, bietjie lang arm daar so, dis great, man. But ultimately, they still end up pointing the finger to Jesus. And I see it in their behavior wherever I see them, in the interviews that they have with people, their behaviors on stage, the way that they do things are different to people that aren't doing it for the Lord. You can clearly see this stuff. I'm going to have to do another day on this. Why then is it that God does more for other people than for me? Why does it that God answers other people's prayers and not mine? The focus on you is, where's your heart? Where's your focus? Why are you focusing on them? Why are you focusing on their race? Are you comparing your race to somebody else's again, which you shouldn't be doing in the first place? And if you are asking these questions, it could be that your heart is quite a little bit not right yet. Because a lot of people get stuck in the ego. Check me out. Check what I did. That's me that did that. Did you see that? Your heart's not right if you do that. You need to check your ego. You need to check your pride. Jesus tells us again in Matthew 16, He says, then Jesus said to His disciple, if anyone desires to come after me, then let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? You need to take up your cross. You need to deny yourself when you follow Jesus, because ultimately all we need to do is point the finger to the Lord, point the finger to the Father. That's what Jesus did in all aspects. You don't see Jesus walking around. I never saw Him anywhere where He manipulated people. He simply pointed the finger to God. So we just need to change these things in all our actions. We need to point the finger to God always. God gives us the strength, so it would make sense to use it for Him. So why then do you do what you do?